My consort has kept a mistress. He once swore to me, "This humble servant, Xie, will never take a concubine. Having the princess is enough for me." Yet now, he holds his pregnant mistress in his arms, his demeanor arrogant and brazen. Li Wanqing, I want to take a concubine. Anger shook me to the core. Blood surged up my throat, and I spat it out, collapsing dead before him. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day I chose my consort. Meeting his hopeful gaze, I casually pointed to another man. But he lost his mind. His eyes reddened, his voice trembling as he asked, "Does your highness no longer want me?" On the night of our wedding, my consort's eyes were passionate and filled with devotion, as if reflecting a sky full of stars. "This humble servant, Xie, will never take a concubine. Having the princess is enough for me. To hold your hand and grow old together, to share a life with just the two of us." My heart felt as if it was melting, soft and warm, and tears almost fell from my eyes. For 3 years after our marriage, my consort and I were deeply in love. But unfortunately, I have been unable to conceive a child. He, however, never seemed to mind. My mother-in-law, on the other hand, constantly gave me hostile looks and frequently brought up taking concubines or selecting maidservants for him. She even tried to drug him and send women into his bed. Even when he was in a dazed state, he would grit his teeth, his expression cold, and kick them out. In the bitter cold of December, he would rather soak in an icy pond than disturb my rest, just so I could sleep peacefully. From that time on, all of the capital spoke of how the Marquis of Yongding cherished and adored the princess, treating her like a priceless treasure in his hands. Xie would cup my face as though holding the most precious gem, his voice soft and tender. "Ching Ching, it doesn't matter if we don't have children. Having you is enough for me." Tears fell from my eyes instantly, and my heart was filled with both warmth and sorrow. I thought he truly loved me. But the scene of a happy family of 3 before my eyes hit me like a punch to the chest. A woman stood at the courtyard gate, holding the hand of a young boy, waiting for Xie. Xie picked up the boy, his gaze tender. "You're pregnant with my precious child, yet you came out to meet me like this. What if you hurt yourself?" So his precious one was not me. His voice was so gentle, even more affectionate than it had been when we married. My heart trembled violently, the pain so sharp that I clenched my teeth. No one knew that every month I had to give my Imperial brother a bowl of blood drawn straight from my heart. Xie's smooth rise in his career was bought with one bowl of fresh blood after another. And Xie did not know. I was already living on borrowed time. I stepped out of the carriage and walked toward them, seeing their panic and fear turn into defiance. His mistress turned out to be my cousin, Chiyu, with whom I had grown up. Because of me, she had enjoyed the privileges of a legitimate princess since childhood, living in luxury far beyond what even many princes could imagine. I had treated her like my own sister. A dull ache spread through my heart as if pricked by countless silver needles. Her voice was soft and trembling with fear. "Sister, please don't blame Xie. It's all my fault for clinging to him." Xie's brows furrowed visibly, and his vacant gaze lingered on me, his grip on Chiyu tightening unconsciously. Chiyu wiped away her tears, suddenly gathering courage as she lowered her eyes and accused me. If not for sister's jealousy, Xie wouldn't have had to hide me in secret. "Sister, if you can't be magnanimous enough to allow Xie and me to be together, must you tarnish your reputation as a jealous woman? Being jealous is one of the 7 grounds for divorce." I frowned and closed my eyes briefly. When I opened them again, my expression was cold and indifferent. I raised a hand and pointed at Xie, my voice calm. "What do you have to say for yourself?" He stayed silent, his eyes growing colder by the moment. After a long pause, he embraced the heavily pregnant Chiyu and solemnly said, "Li Wanqing, I want to take a concubine." Anger surged within me. "Xie, you bastard." Blood rose rapidly in my chest, and I spat it out, collapsing dead before him. In a haze, I heard his desperate cries. "Ching Ching, don't scare me." When I opened my eyes again, I found myself at the spring banquet. My imperial brother was choosing a consort for me. All of the capital knew that Xiezi and I had privately pledged ourselves to each other long ago. Just 3 days earlier, we had exchanged tokens of love in the imperial garden. At this banquet, everyone was certain I would choose him. Xiezi was certain. My imperial brother was certain. The entire court of civil and military officials was certain. Dear sister, the most talented young men in the capital are here for you to choose from. I will make the decision for you, my imperial brother said, smiling insincerely. The young men at the banquet chatted and laughed, but Xiezi's gaze was soft and affectionate as he looked at me, full of certainty and hope, with a hint of suppressed joy. The empress spoke gently. Does the princess have someone in mind? I paused slightly and pressed my lips together without answering. My imperial brother's lips curled into a faint smile. Sister, speak freely. I will agree to whomever you choose. Everything between Xiezi and me was within his control, and he naturally had expectations. I cast a calm glance over the gathering and stopped at a quiet corner. There sat a man of extraordinary poise, drinking alone in silence. He was slender, simply dressed, and exuded an air of quiet strength and dignity. It was the newly appointed third-ranking scholar from the Imperial examination. Poor in family background, but blessed with striking good looks. I paused and thought, excellent. Raising my brows slightly, I pointed to him and said aloud, I choose the third-ranking scholar as my consort. The music and laughter stopped abruptly. Everyone turned to look at me in unison. Xiezi stared at me in disbelief, his expression flashing with pain as he stammered, the princess must be drunk. I ignored him and walked straight to the third-ranking scholar. What is your name? His deep eyes met mine as he bowed slightly. Lin Yanxi. A beautiful name. Thank you, Your Highness, for the compliment. Are you willing to marry the princess? Lin Yanxi looked at me in surprise, but there was no displeasure in his expression, only a hint of joy. He stood tall, his expression sincere, and replied loudly, This humble servant is willing. Xiezi tried to speak, but I cut him off. Imperial brother, I request an imperial decree to marry Lin Yanxi, the third-ranking scholar. Sitting at the top of the dais, my imperial brother's expression was unreadable. After a long silence, he said in a deep voice, Granted. Xiezi's eyes turned red, his voice urgent and trembling. I do not agree. I forbid it. Marquis Xie, what right do you have to disagree? Do you dare to defy an imperial decree? He choked. This humble servant would not dare. His gaze darkened as he approached me, lowering his voice to question me. Why, Qingqing? Why betray me? I did not look at him and instead took Lin Yanxi's hand. His fingers were long and beautiful. I spoke slowly, enunciating every word clearly. I never loved you. How can it be called betrayal? Xiezi's expression was panicked, his face deathly pale. I don't believe you. I sneered and pulled Lin Yanxi away, turning to leave. Lin Yanxi's lips curved up slightly, the motion almost imperceptible, yet his entire demeanor seemed like the warmth of spring melting an icy mountain. It was mesmerizing. In a low voice, he asked, Did Your Highness say that just for me to hear? I froze, my palms suddenly growing warm. Abruptly, I pulled my hand back. Apologies. I was being presumptuous. We shall meet again another day. I fled in a fluster. The next day, I went to the palace of heavenly purity. Kneel, came my imperial brother's icy command. I slowly knelt, letting out a long breath. In the end, I couldn't escape. Once a month, you had the chance to ask for a favor. You saved them up for 3 years, only to use them to request a marriage decree with Xiezi. My imperial brother gripped my chin, his expression unreadable. You were never allowed to marry. You were meant to stay by my side for life. It was only because of the 3 years of heart's blood you gave that I reluctantly granted the marriage. And yet, in front of me, you suddenly changed your mind and chose another man. Li Wanqing, what kind of game are you playing? My gaze remained calm, devoid of any ripples. Imperial brother, does it matter who I marry? I will still deliver my monthly offering of heart's blood. Besides, I chose a poor scholar with no power or influence. When I finished speaking, I began to draw my blood. My imperial brother released me with a cold flick of his hand. On my way out of the palace, I was suddenly pulled into the shadow of a rockery in the imperial garden. The trembling arms that embraced me belonged to Siazi. I kicked him away with all my strength, frowning deeply. The abrupt movement tugged at the wound on my chest, sending a sharp pain through me. I leaned against the rockery, my voice trembling. Marquis Xie, do you know the punishment for offending the eldest princess? His eyes were bloodshot, his lips pressed tightly together, silent for a long time. At last he spoke, his voice hoarse and choked. I thought you were highly favored and that asking the emperor for a marriage decree would be as easy as a flick of the hand. I didn't know that, as the esteemed eldest princess, you still had to pay such a price. And such a steep price at that. His eyes were red and swollen, tears falling onto the back of my hand one by one. But I only found it absurd. What difference did it make if he didn't know the price I paid? Not knowing meant he didn't cherish it. Now that he knew, so what? Did he want me to forgive him? Ridiculous. I frowned deeply. Siazi, you disgust me. Listen carefully. There's no longer any possibility between us. Don't pester me again. I turned to leave. He tried to stop me but was interrupted by a clear and pleasant voice. Your Highness, all is well? Elder sister. It was Lin Yanxi. Beside him was Qiyu. I frowned. When had Lin Yanxi become close to Qiyu? Lin Yanxi walked to my side. I got lost in the Imperial garden and met Miss Qi, who kindly showed me the way. Qiyu smiled sweetly, standing very close to Lin Yanxi. When she noticed Xie behind me, her smile became even brighter. Brother Xie, you're here too. Xie froze. I ignored them both and took Lin Yanxi's arm to leave. Xie grabbed my wrist tightly and pulled out something, a jade pendant with 2 fish playing in water. It was the token of affection I had given him. His eyes were bloodshot, tears falling heavily onto the jade pendant. Does your Highness not care for me at all anymore? His expression was mournful, his voice filled with sorrow. Time seemed to freeze. I stopped in my tracks and looked back at him calmly. I don't care. I, Li Wanqing, no longer care for Xie. Xie's eyes widened, his body trembling as if he could no longer stand. He clutched my wrist tightly. I don't believe you. The eldest princess is taking revenge on me. I looked directly at him. Revenge? Based on the timeline, he and Qiyu had not yet gotten together, and he hadn't betrayed me yet. What revenge could there be? I lowered my gaze, saying nothing. Xie had been reborn. He clung to my hand like a drowning man grasping at straws, trembling uncontrollably, as if my words could pull him out of hell. In my previous life, I learned many things. For example, how to wait and watch. For example, how to act. I furrowed my brows slightly, feigning confusion. Xie, have you done something to wrong me? Why do you think I'm taking revenge on you? I simply realized that you're not to my taste. Is that so hard to understand? Everyone in the capital knew that the eldest princess, though frail, was domineering and bold, a woman who loved fiercely but discarded just as easily when her affections waned. No one would doubt my actions, including Xie, and so he believed I had not been reborn. I saw a spark of hope ignite in his eyes, burning fervently. Then, what about me displeases the eldest princess? I will change. I curled my lips into a mocking smile and pried his fingers off my wrist one by one. I've come to realize that everything about you displeases me. I grabbed Lin Yanxi's hand. This is the type I like. Do you understand now? Xie froze, as if struck by a heavy blow. No, that's impossible. Your Highness, you clearly love me the most. I don't want to hear another word from you. I pulled Lin Yanxi away, cutting off Xie's unfinished sentence, ignoring him entirely. I didn't notice the way Chiyu stared intently at Lin Yanxi, her eyes filled with determination. Nor did I see the way Xie pursed his lips, his heavy gaze fixed on my retreating figure. I lifted my gaze to look at Lin Yanxi. He had remained quietly by my side, saying nothing, without the slightest trace of inquiry in his expression. "Don't you have anything to ask me?" I asked. Lin Yanxi's gaze was calm and cool. "Your Highness naturally has your reasons for your actions." His lips curved into a faint smile, his expression softening. "As long as your Highness is happy, there is no need to consider my feelings." I froze momentarily, an unfamiliar sensation welling up in my chest. "Even if I feel no romantic affection toward you, even if our marriage is in name only, and even if you lose the chance to rise to the ranks of the powerful, none of this bothers you?" Lin Yanxi's eyes fixed on mine, his expression hinting at mild surprise. "Your Highness's favor has already been a great blessing. Were I to ask for more, would that not make me an ungrateful wretch?" True enough. To marry into the Imperial family as a humble scholar from a poor family, even without gaining power, was already an elevation for him and his entire family. Under the status of royal kinship, he could break through the social hierarchy and achieve greatness. He was sincere, yet I couldn't summon any joy. In my previous life, Lin Yanxi rose to power through the Imperial examination, his integrity and talent propelling him to the position of Grand Chancellor at a young age. He had the brilliance to save the realm, the ambition of a lofty swan. He didn't need my help to succeed. How could I, for my own selfish reasons, clip the wings of his soaring ambitions? I turned my gaze toward Qianqing Palace, my eyes chilling. "Lin Yanxi, I will personally see to it that you get everything you deserve." He didn't respond, his expression darkening as his eyes settled on my pale lips. Suddenly he spoke. "Your Highness, you've not been taking care of yourself." I blinked. Pain suddenly shot through my chest. The world spun, and I collapsed into his arms. He caught me, his hand wrapping around my waist as he lifted me effortlessly. The awkward closeness made me struggle to stay conscious. "Put me down. I can walk on my own." But he held me firmly, pressing my head against his shoulder to keep me still. "Your Highness," he said, his voice low and steady, though tinged with warmth. My consciousness began to slip away. "Be good." His voice was low, gentle, and trembling faintly. And then, darkness swallowed me. I dreamed. A dream where I was but a wandering soul, witnessing the world after my death in my past life. In the dream, Xie stared at Lin Yanxi in terror. Lin Yanxi gripped a long sword, his once black hair turned silver. The silvery hue only enhanced his breathtaking beauty, which was further amplified by the blood that drenched him, making him appear both demonic and otherworldly. "She's dead. The Marquis's household will be her burial offering," Lin Yanxi said coldly, his voice like the icy depths of winter. Xie's eyes widened in horror. "Why would you avenge Qingqing? What was your relationship with her?" I froze in shock. Lin Yanxi was avenging me? Lin Yanxi's gaze was devoid of warmth. "You are unworthy of uttering her name." Xie scrutinized Lin Yanxi's face, suddenly realizing something. His expression turned to panic. "You're not Lin Yanxi. You're the son of that traitorous criminal who defied the Imperial court. How dare you covet the princess? You're audacious." With a cold laugh, Lin Yanxi thrust his sword through Xie's chest. Blood poured onto the ground as Xie fell lifelessly. Lin Yanxi's once vibrant eyes were now blood-red, his expression like that of a ghostly demon. The scene shifted suddenly. In the grand hall, my Imperial brother stood like a cornered beast. "I thought you were a loyal and pure official, but you dared to conspire to usurp the throne. You are nothing but a treacherous villain." The hall was filled with corpses, blood pooling on the floor. The air was thick with the stench of death, haunting and oppressive. Lin Yanxi, clad in pristine white robes, stood atop the high platform, sword in hand, his expression indifferent. "You owe me over 100 lives. I was willing to wait to settle this debt. You could have sat on your throne a while longer. But she's dead. And now, the only reason you're still alive is gone. His voice was soft, without a hint of emotion, but it carried boundless sorrow. My Imperial brother opened his mouth to retort, but Lin Yanxi's sword was too quick. The words froze on his lips as he fell, his eyes wide open in death, unable to find peace. The blood splattered onto Lin Yanxi's face. Yet he didn't even blink. His strikingly beautiful face was cold and fierce, like a ghost from the depths of hell. I shuddered, jolting awake. Lin Yanxi was no mere scholar from a humble family. Between him and the Imperial clan lay a river of blood and hatred. "Your Highness, drink some water." Lin Yanxi's calm, clear voice rang in my ears, and I froze. He held a teacup, his slender fingers pale as jade. Outside, rain poured relentlessly, the wind howling like a beast. The vivid blood from my dream seemed to linger before my eyes, tightening my chest and making it hard to breathe. I instinctively looked at Lin Yanxi. Who was he, truly? "Did you have a nightmare, Your Highness? Drink some water to calm yourself." Lin Yanxi's expression was gentle, his voice smooth and soothing, utterly unlike the bloodthirsty demon from my dream. In this life, I would not marry Xiezi again. And in this life, everything else would inevitably change. Earlier today, I had forced Lin Yanxi's hand in the palace. Would that cause him to change his mind and even want to kill me? I hastily took the teacup and said, "Thank you for escorting me back to the manor, Lin Tanhua. It's late, so I won't keep you. Please head home and rest." He frowned slightly, his displeasure at my dismissal evident. His tone turned cold. "Very well. Take care of yourself, Your Highness. I shall take my leave." With that, he turned and left without looking back. I let out a long sigh of relief and jumped out of bed, grabbing the cold teapot and draining it dry. No matter what, I couldn't sit idly by and wait for my doom. In this life, that throne would be mine. With power in my hands, no one would dare lay a finger on me. Not long after, the autumn hunt in September began, and I accompanied the Emperor on the trip as usual. "Brother Xie, does Sister Qingqing really not like you anymore?" The sound of Chiyue's voice made me stop abruptly. Through the thicket, I saw the two of them, unaware of my presence. Xiezi's expression was gentle, the very picture of a kind older brother. To outsiders, it may seem as if the princess and I are deeply in love. But in truth, it's only because I pursued her so persistently that she had no space in her eyes for anyone else. Her feelings for me were never truly deep. His gaze darkened. "She just hasn't liked me enough yet." Chiyue widened her eyes. "So, that's why she's drawn to the new Imperial scholar?" Xiezi didn't respond immediately. After a pause, his expression turned cold. But after today, she'll have no choice but to fall in love with me." I toyed with a dry leaf in my hand, lowering my gaze slightly. As expected, he was still so full of himself. Back then, he was arrogant enough to believe I'd accept Chiyue as a concubine. Now, he's arrogant enough to think I'll inevitably love him. How utterly ridiculous. The next day, while hunting in the forest, I was ambushed by a brown bear. The accompanying maids and eunuchs screamed in panic, scattering in all directions, but I remained remarkably calm. Just as the bear raised its paw to strike me, a familiar, sharp cry rang out. "Beast! How dare you harm Her Highness the Princess?" In my previous life, at this exact moment, I was also attacked during the hunt, my life hanging by a thread. It was Xiezi who appeared like a savior to rescue me. He said, "Qingqing, what would I do without you?" My heart trembled, and I buried myself in his broad robes, sobbing uncontrollably. No one had ever cared for me like that before. Xiezi gave me an immense sense of security. I was convinced Xiezi was my destined partner. But later, I came to learn the truth. It was all a carefully orchestrated scheme by Xiezi to make me wholly devoted to him. At the time, everyone in Shengjing knew I had a difficult personality. Favored by the emperor and holding power, I stood above all others, making most men too intimidated to pursue me. Only Xie dared to do so. He became the one man who passionately courted me, successfully winning my favor. Yet, even then, I hadn't fallen for him entirely. That's why he staged this hero saving the damsel scenario to capture my heart completely. The old me would have fallen for it. But I am no longer the person I was. Xie drove off the bear and held me tightly in his arms. His voice was filled with sincerity. Qingqing, what would I do without you? I let out a derisive laugh. Xie froze, clearly stunned. Lord Xie, if you didn't have me, there would always be someone else. He could ignore my worsening complexion and keep a mistress in a hidden alley. He could disregard my illness while calling in physicians daily to check Chiyue's pregnancy. He could forget his promises to me and hold Chiyue, vowing eternal devotion to her. He could betray me. He could abandon me. He was capable of anything. Xie visibly stiffened. Your Highness, what are you saying? I lowered my gaze to conceal the hatred in my eyes, my tone tinged with just the right amount of oddness. Did I say something wrong? In this world, no one is truly indispensable. His body relaxed slightly as he clutched my hand. Your Highness, why such words? Xie, will never leave you. Xie, will never take a concubine. You alone are enough for me. Xie, am blessed beyond measure to have such a virtuous wife as you. Qingqing, it doesn't matter if we never have children. Having you is more than enough. His promises in my past life were endless. So many that he later fell into another woman's arms and couldn't remember a single word. A single tear rolled off my cheek and landed heavily on the back of his hand. A surge of despair and anger rose from the depths of my heart. I met his gaze directly and declared resolutely, Xie, my greatest regret is marrying you. I was deceived, betrayed, and humiliated, all because of you. But in this life, I paused, locking eyes with him. Xie, hear me clearly. I will never love you again. Xie stood frozen. His emotions shifted from shock to fear, and finally to utter despair. His voice trembled with sorrow. So, you remember everything. How I wish you didn't know. I pushed him away with all my strength. So, I could be deceived by you all over again? He opened his mouth, but all his words condensed into a single sentence. Qingqing, my love for you is real. I steadied myself, meeting his gaze with calm resolve. And my feelings for you are real too. I truly don't love you anymore. He seemed to lose his footing, collapsing against a dead tree trunk, his entire body trembling. His anguish felt tangible, spilling from his misty eyes and pressing down on me. I didn't spare him a glance as I turned and walked away. Xie, don't think this is over. The debts of my past life, I will make you repay them in blood. Your Highness, you truly have a heart of steel. A clear, cool voice suddenly echoed through the forest. I started, quickly raising my head. Lin Yanxi stood beneath a withered tree, tall and elegant, his figure as refined as jade in the wind. Why was he here? And had he seen everything? Could it be that in my past life, he was here as well, witnessing everything between me and Xie? A sudden sense of exposure made me bristle with anger. Since when has Tan Hualin developed the habit of eavesdropping on others? I snapped. He chuckled softly. There's no need to be angry, Your Highness. I only came because I heard you were in danger. It was by chance that I overheard your private matters. He came to save me? I froze. In my dream, he had silver hair, destroyed the Xie Marquis household, and overthrew an entire dynasty, all claiming it was for my vengeance. In both lifetimes, at the mere hint of danger, he came to rescue me. My chest tightened and my nose stung. Who exactly is he? I snorted softly and turned away, leaving without looking back at Lin Yanxi's piercingly cold gaze directed at Xie. Nor did I notice the deep love in his eyes as he watched my retreating figure. That night, I had another dream. In the dream, I was struggling desperately in an icy, bone-chilling pool. Princess Ping'an has fallen into the water. Someone help. It was the day my older brother had pushed me into the Tay pool when we were still young. My maid cried out for a long time, but in the vast palace, not a single person responded. All of this had been tacitly allowed by my mother. Otherwise, my brother, still a boy at the time, wouldn't have been able to pull off something so extreme on his own. My older brother and I were twins born of the same mother. Yet my biological mother was willing to drown me just to secure my brother's future.
Why?
All because a Taoist priest had once read my fortune. This girl is blessed by the purple star, a natural ruler. To ensure my brother's claim to the throne, my mother decided to sacrifice me so easily. Just as I was about to drown in despair, a white-robed youth descended into the pool like a deity and pulled me to safety. "Don't be afraid, young lady. You're safe now." His peach blossom-shaped eyes were unfamiliar, yet hauntingly familiar at the same time. I woke up with a start, gasping for air. Lin Yanxi wasn't Lin Yanxi. He was the very person who had saved my life back then. He was Gu Mingxian, the youngest legitimate son of the Gu family, falsely accused of treason and collaboration with the enemy. Outside, the wind howled furiously, rattling the windows. I hurriedly threw on a robe and ran barefoot through the halls, shouting, "Where's Lin Tanhua? Someone, bring me to him now." Amidst my panic, a clear and crisp voice suddenly rang out. "Your Highness, are you looking for me?" The dark corridor was shrouded in storm clouds, the atmosphere heavy and dim. Dressed in white, Lin Yanxi seemed to radiate light, his folded fan exuding a faint fragrance. My throat felt dry and hoarse, and I couldn't utter a word. I wanted to ask him if he was Gu Mingxian. I wanted to ask why he was in the princess's residence. But no words came out. After a long pause, Lin Yanxi approached me and gently patted my head. "Your Highness, if someone has wronged you, shall I avenge you?" A lump formed in my throat. "You know everything?" He shook his head. "I don't know much. I only know that your Highness bears a wound on your heart and has been wronged in love. The wound in your heart was caused by His Majesty, and the heartache by Xia Haoi." He took my hand and led me back inside, kneeling down to slip shoes onto my feet. Then he looked up at me. "Your Highness, shall I offer you this kingdom?" It felt as though I had eaten something sour, tangy and slightly sweet. My tears began to fall, one after another, hitting the ground with soft splashes. No one had ever noticed my hardships before. Xie, though close to the royal family's secrets, had been nothing more than a pawn used by my brother. He never truly saw the truth. The doctor said I had been frail since birth, and Xie believed him. When I clutched my aching chest and claimed it was merely a mood swing, he believed me without question. After my rebirth, I chose someone else as my consort, and everyone in the capital gossiped that the princess was capricious and had wronged Xia Haoi. But in truth, it was Xie who had wronged me. Only Lin Yanxi, no, Gu Mingxian, could see through everything with piercing clarity. "Did you come to the princess's residence just to say this? Does your Highness believe me? Why would I trust you? Aren't you afraid I'll report everything to the emperor? Gu Mingxuan?" Lin Yanxi froze for a moment, then his brows relaxed as he replied lightly, "Your Highness won't." And he was right, I wouldn't. This throne? I had always been determined to claim it. I grabbed Lin Yanxi's hand.
Fine.
Then together, let's create a golden age. Lin Yanxi's eyes curved into a smile, his voice gentle. "Your humble servant obeys." 3 months later, I postponed my wedding and exchanged a bowl of blood drawn from my heart for Lin Yanxi to secure the post of Imperial Salt Inspector in the south. Lin Yanxi was firmly against it. His brows furrowed deeply, his eyes flashing with anger. "Your Highness, how could you hurt yourself for my sake?" We had already found a plausible excuse to evade the blood sacrifice. "Your Highness, this must hurt terribly." The more he spoke, the redder his eyes became. By the end, only anguish remained. I shook my head and gently patted his hand. "Yanxi, I have my reasons. Trust me." Lin Yanxi pursed his lips, silent. After a long pause, He took a deep breath. I trust you, Your Highness. Control over the Imperial Salt of the South meant controlling the lifeline of the Southern bureaucracy. The role of Salt Inspector was the perfect opportunity. In my previous life, Xiezi had asked me for this very post and handed the lifeline of the South over to my brother. This act earned him great merit and solidified my brother's trust in him. But this time, I would ensure that the Southern lifeline was firmly in my hands. As I returned to the palace, Xiezi blocked my path. He dragged me to a secluded corner and pinned me against the palace wall. You'd rather offer up your blood month after month, like in our past life, all to secure this position for Lin Yanxi? I frowned, my tone cold. Yes. His voice suddenly rose. You've taken away the role that should have been mine. Even if you don't love me anymore, you shouldn't go this far. I shoved him away hard. What do you mean? Should have been yours. Just because I didn't tell you in our past life doesn't mean I didn't work for you. He froze. What are you talking about? I stared at him. In our past life, you casually mentioned wanting to inspect the salt trade, and I remembered it. So, I went to the Emperor and begged for a favor on your behalf. The position you coveted so much? I exchanged it for with bowls of blood for my heart. Where do you get the audacity to question me now? Xiezi, you've got some nerve. Xiezi stood rooted to the spot, his eyes wide with shock. So, the salt inspection, the military command, your appointments to the Ministry of Justice and the Ministry of Revenue, all those favors were obtained by you with your blood? I let out a cold laugh. Otherwise, with the declining power of the Xie family and your mediocre skills, how could you have been promoted so rapidly? Without me, do you think you deserved it? Did your Xie family deserve it? Xiezi raised a trembling hand, as though he wanted to touch my chest. His hand shook violently. Ching ching. Was it painful? Smack. I slapped his hand away. But what about you? You betrayed me. You said you loved only me, but turned around and found solace in another's arms. You promised never to take a concubine, but you kept a mistress and tried to force me to elevate her. Xiezi, you lied to me. Xiezi looked as if he had been dealt a heavy blow, collapsing against the palace wall, weak and helpless. His reddened eyes brimmed with tears as he spoke in a trembling voice. No, Ching Ching, I didn't lie to you. I love you. That's the truth. What happened with Chiyue, it was fate, something I couldn't control. Couldn't control? Wasn't it because Chiyue was the one he promised to marry in his childhood? Wasn't it because Chiyue showed him a jade pendant and claimed it as proof of their connection? So that was reason enough to betray me? But he had no idea. The jade pendant in Chiyue's hand had been stolen from me. The girl he made a childish promise to under the phoenix tree in the Imperial garden was me. Sometimes, I can't help but wonder, does he love the jade pendant or the person behind it? But in the end, I didn't ask. Whether he mistook me or not made no difference. What mattered was that, at his core, he was an unfaithful, disloyal man. I looked at Xiezi, now in pain and collapsed on the ground, my gaze icy cold. I would never tell him the truth. I wanted nothing more to do with him. Xiezi, everything we've become is your doing. Take care of yourself. With that, I turned and walked away without looking back. Behind me, I heard his despairing sobs muffled by his clenched fists. In my past life, I had already noticed Xiezi's suspicious behavior early on. I followed the clues and slowly uncovered the truth, feeling my heart grow colder with every step. Somehow, Chiyue learned about the jade pendant. She stole the pendant I had long forgotten about and used it to connect with Xiezi, pouring her heart out to him. At first, he was resistant, but Chiyue, with her clever retreat and advanced tactics, chipped away at his resolve until his heart wavered. If not for this mistake, I would never have married Li Wanqing. The person I love is the girl I played on the swings with under the phoenix tree in the Imperial garden. What does it matter if she's a princess? If I want her to accept you, she won't dare refuse. When the nanny I had assigned to investigate reported this to me, I was so enraged I coughed up blood. I wanted a divorce, to reclaim all the power I had bestowed upon him. But before I could act, my body gave out. After my mother consulted a Taoist priest about my fate, she immediately asked how to reverse it. The priest advised, the emperor's heart blood, when consumed, can transfer imperial fortune. For the sake of imperial fortune, my mother and imperial brother didn't hesitate to make me offer my heart blood. From then on, though I appeared to be their cherished daughter and beloved sister, I was nothing more than a blood bank sustaining the imperial fortune. Month after month, a bowl of heart blood. My body was riddled with wounds long before my death, so early and so powerless to regret. Lin Yanxi successfully secured control of the southern region. The day he returned to the capital coincided with the 100 Flowers banquet. That day, assassins attacked. In my past life, when Xie Zi was about to block a sword aimed at me, Chiyue clung to him in terror, crying, "Brother Xie, I'm scared." At that exact moment, she conveniently revealed the jade pendant. Xie Zi hesitated. In the end, he chose to take Chiyue and flee, leaving me gravely injured and unconscious. The sword had been meant for him. I was hurt because I shielded him. More ironically, I woke up with no memory of how I had been injured. Xie Zi and Chiyue avoided the topic, covering it with lies. It wasn't until the moment of my death that I remembered everything. I clenched my fists and looked towards Xie Zi, who was gazing at me with hope. He pushed Chiyue away, refusing to even glance at the jade pendant. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Lin Yanxi. He had been fighting at the perimeter of the assassins, but now he was charging toward the inner circle with all his might. As he neared me, a sword aimed directly at his chest. Almost simultaneously, another assassin's blade struck towards Xie Zi. Xie Zi looked straight at me, mouthing the words, "You won't abandon me, will you, Ching Ching?" I smiled and mouthed back, "I absolutely will." Without hesitation, I turned and threw myself toward Lin Yanxi, making the opposite choice from my past life. Lin Yanxi held me tightly and rolled us to safety. With a sharp thrust, he killed the assassin, warm blood spraying across his face. His once pure, lotus-like features now carried a demonic charm, reminiscent of the haunting figure in my dreams. But the man before me had bright, sparkling peach blossom eyes, fixed unblinkingly on me. "Your Highness, you saved me," he said. Resting against his chest, I listened to his heartbeat, strong, fervent, and quickening. Only he would run toward me, without hesitation. Only he would choose me. Perhaps it had been the same in my past life, but I hadn't noticed. I clung to him tightly and whispered, "Don't call me Your Highness anymore. Call me by my childhood name, Wanwan." Lin Yanxi's breath hitched, his voice hoarse as he replied, "Wanwan." Suddenly, my wrist was grabbed violently. "Li Wanqing, how could you not choose me? I'm your husband," Xie Zi shouted.
Slap.
I struck him hard across the face. "Open your dog eyes and see clearly. Lin Yanxi is my husband now." Xie Zi's bloodshot eyes stared at me as he broke his sword's hilt in his grip. "Ching Ching, have you really given up on me?" I flung his hand away. "Listen closely. I don't want you anymore. Even looking at you disgusts me." Tears welled in Xie Zi's eyes, falling uncontrollably. "But I chose you. I rejected the jade pendant. So what? I don't love you anymore." Grabbing Lin Yanxi's hand, I turned to leave. "Stop blocking my way, Xie Zi. I have to discuss Lin Yanxi's appointment to the inner cabinet with my brother." Today was the 15th, the day for my blood offering. I planned to use this bowl of blood to pave Lin Yanxi's path to power. Xie Zi froze in place, understanding the implication in my words. His fingers trembled violently as rage and despair filled his bloodshot eyes. "You're willing to sacrifice yourself again, just for him?" I stopped and looked back. "Yes, for him." Each word was clear and deliberate. Xie Zi stood motionless, stunned, his eyes filling with sorrow. His lips moved, but his throat seemed choked, preventing him from speaking. Finally, he clutched at my sleeve, his voice trembling. "But you used to care for me the most." A single tear fell from his eyes, splashing to the ground. I remained cold and indifferent, prying his fingers off one by one. Without a hint of emotion, I said, "The one person I least wish to see in this life is you. Lord Xie, take care of yourself. Otherwise, don't blame me for being merciless." Xie staggered back, devastated. I turned and walked away. After Lin Yanxi entered the cabinet, war broke out in the northern borders. I recommended him as the supervising general for the northern campaign. Thanks to his high regard among the cabinet officials, the appointment was approved without much resistance. Half a year later, on Emperor Li Zhen's longevity banquet, Lin Yanxi returned triumphantly. That night, during the grand celebration, Qiyu made a stunning appearance. Her performance of the rainbow skirt and feathered coat dance captivated the Forbidden City. Hanging from her waist was a sachet. The intricate dark purple embroidery on the white crescent background struck me as oddly familiar. I frowned. That was mine. To be precise, it was an incense sachet given to me by Gu Mingxian to comfort me after he had saved me in childhood. Later, when the Gu family fell into ruin, I secretly sent people to rescue him on the night of their household's downfall. I had slipped a note inside the sachet that read, "The future is long. We must plan carefully. Stay safe." But the eunuch who carried out the rescue returned with the sachet, saying that because I had never revealed my name or identity, the young master of the Gu family did not know who I was. He entrusted the sachet back to me, promising to find me someday to repay the debt, with the sachet serving as proof. My frown deepened. How did this sachet end up with Qiyu? She adjusted her robes, and the sachet swayed lightly with her movements. Next to me, Lin Yanxi abruptly froze, the wine cup in his hand trembling slightly. The entire banquet felt tasteless to me. After it ended, I took the initiative to part ways with Lin Yanxi to leave the palace. He furrowed his brows slightly, but said nothing. The palace paths were long and bathed in bright moonlight. As I walked, I happened upon Qiyu blocking Lin Yanxi's way in the Imperial garden. "Lord Lin, please wait. I have something to return to you." Lin Yanxi stopped and turned, his expression unreadable. I had imagined countless ways Qiyu might try to approach Lin Yanxi, but I had not expected her to throw herself at him so brazenly. Hidden in the shadows, I quietly observed. Lin Yanxi's voice was cool and clear. "What is it?" "Lord Lin, do you remember this sachet?" Qiyu said, presenting it to him. Lin Yanxi took the sachet and examined it closely. His fingers abruptly tightened. "You are the one who saved me back then?" Qiyu gave a shy smile. "I wouldn't dare claim to be your savior. I simply couldn't bear to see someone as extraordinary as you wronged unjustly." Lin Yanxi remained unfazed. "And how would you like me to repay this life-saving kindness?" Qiyu stepped closer, narrowing the gap between them. "Lord Lin, the princess is fickle and heartless. Do you really want to follow in Lord Xie's footsteps? I've admired you for a long time. Since our parting, I've thought of you constantly." Seeing no rejection from Lin Yanxi, Qiyu grew bolder, reaching out to take his hand. "Lord Lin, have you heard the saying?" She lifted her delicate face, her eyes brimming with emotion. "A life-saving grace should be repaid with one's own." Her gaze was filled with affection as she looked at him. My heart clenched suddenly as I watched Lin Yanxi. He smiled faintly, but his eyes remained ice-cold. "Miss Qi, do you think I'm a fool?" Qiyu froze. "Lord Lin, what do you mean?" Lin Yanxi abruptly grabbed her by the neck, veins bulging on his hand. "Do you find it amusing to steal someone else's credit?" Qiyu panicked, struggling to speak but unable to make a sound. Lin Yanxi's voice was sharp and biting. "A token is nothing more than a lifeless object. Did you really think it could make me fall in love with you? Are you so naive, or do you think I'm that brainless?" He flung her to the ground with force. "Speak. When did you steal this from the princess?" A wave of numbness spread through my chest. So he had known all along. Qiyu clutched her chest, gasping for air. How did you know?" Lin Yanxi sneered. "I have eyes of my own. I already investigated everything long ago. If you won't tell the truth, then you can explain yourself in the Dali Temple prison." Qiyu's expression twisted in defiance. "You wouldn't dare." If you arrest me, I'll expose your secret ties to the rebel faction." A murderous glint flashed in Lin Yanxi's eyes. Before he could speak, I stepped out from the shadows. I walked straight into the open. "Chiyue, if you wish to die, I won't stop you. Guards, take her to the secret prison." Shadow guards swiftly took her away without a trace of commotion. I looked at Lin Yanxi. "When did you find out that the girl from back then was me?" Lin Yanxi wrapped an arm around my waist and spoke softly. "Before I even entered the capital, I already knew." He gazed at me with unwavering focus. "I started investigating long ago. After discovering it was you, I immediately traveled to the capital to take the Imperial examinations. I only wished to be worthy of your highness." Leaning against his chest, I felt warmth bloom in my heart. On the day Lin Yanxi and I were betrothed, Xie came looking for me. My hand, which had been preparing tea for Lin Yanxi, paused. "Qing, are you really going to marry someone else?" I lowered my gaze and smiled faintly, ignoring him. Without hesitation, I handed the tea to Lin Yanxi. "Yen, try the tea I've made." Lin Yanxi set down his book, took the cup, and sipped lightly. "Anything Wanwan makes is naturally exquisite." Xie's breathing became erratic. "Wanwan? You're allowing him to call you Wanwan? You once said only your wet nurse could call you that, not even me." I looked at him coldly. "And so?" His eyes instantly brimmed with tears. "You really love him that much?" I enunciated each word clearly. "Yes, I love him." Every word landed like a stone. Xie choked up. A cold, violent glare passed through his eyes. "Do you know who he is?" I frowned. He passionately accused. "He is not a son of the Lin family. He is a remnant of the traitorous Gu family. Qing, he lied to you. He is the one who deceived you." Lin Yanxi's expression remained unchanged. He turned to look at me. "He cannot be kept alive." Since Xie was exposing Lin Yanxi, to prevent my older brother, Emperor Li Zhen, from learning about it, he had to be silenced forever. But I had other plans. I shook my head. "It doesn't matter." I stood up and directly looked at Xie. "Who I love has nothing to do with his background. I love him for who he is, no matter who he is. Now, are you satisfied? Can you leave?" His body swayed, and his face was filled with pain. "So you knew all along. It was my fault. I shouldn't have wavered back then." The more I listened, the more impatient I became. "Guards, escort him out." Xie left in a daze. Not long after, as expected, Li Zhen summoned me. I made the necessary arrangements and entered the palace. My older brother sat at the highest seat in the court, looking down at me. He threw the memorial at my face angrily. "Look at what you've done." I slowly picked up the memorial. "What's wrong, Your Majesty?" Li Zhen was furious. "Look at the prince you've chosen. He's a remnant of the traitorous Gu family. Is this what you intended? Do you still have thoughts of sitting on the dragon throne?" No wonder I tried so many times to win Lin Yanxi over, but he remained unmoved. It turns out he has another master. I calmly sat down and lazily raised my eyes. "So, what does that mean, Your Majesty? Don't you have an explanation?"
"No. You are truly something."
"Guards, arrest the princess for colluding with traitors and rebelling. Lock her up in the dungeons to await punishment." There was no movement outside. Li Zhen widened his eyes and stood up, shouting, "Guards, where are they?" I raised my hand and admired the rouge. "Your Majesty, stop shouting. No one is coming." Lin Yanxi had already bribed the commander of the Imperial Guard. The entire Imperial Guard was already under my control. Li Zhen was so shocked and angry that he vomited blood, clutching his chest in agony and collapsing into the chair. "Li Wanqing, I am your brother. I treated you well. Why did you betray me?" I sneered. "Your brother? If you were really my brother, why did you push me into the water back then? Why did you make me bleed month after month? Would a brother do this to me?" Li Zhen calmed down. "You've committed fratricide and regicide, which is unforgivable. Do you think you can succeed?" I laughed loudly. Who said I would kill you? It's just that your body suddenly suffered a severe illness and died instantly. He frowned. What do you mean? I didn't respond. I just quietly watched as he vomited more and more blood. In my past life, I had learned many things, like poisoning. Li Zhan loved ink and frequently consumed ink, especially the ink from Miaojiang. Miaojiang also had a healing herb called lung chetzi. Neither of them was poisonous. But when the ink from Miaojiang meets lung chetzi in the bloodstream, it forms an incurable, slow-acting poison. And the human bloodstream is the perfect vessel for it. The cold wind outside blew open the window, bringing with it a biting chill. Your Majesty, you'll never guess. The blood you've stolen from my heart will become your deadly sword. Li Zhan vomited blood and died. The Imperial doctors diagnosed that the emperor had died suddenly from overwork. In the 3rd year of Jinghe, the emperor died suddenly, and the Imperial princess ascended the throne, changing the reign title to Taigon. The first thing I did after ascending the throne was to clear the Gu family's name. The Xie family was involved in this, having helped the former emperor hide an important witness who proved the Gu family's innocence. In the end, the Xie family was sentenced to exile in Lingnan. Xie Zi refused to leave and guarded the prison. In the end, on the day he learned of my marriage to Lin Yanxi, he committed suicide by swallowing gold. Before dying, he wrote a blood letter. I regret this too late. I glanced at it and ordered it burned. Finally, in the secret prison, Chiyu could no longer hold on and requested to see me. She was filthy and in low spirits. The moment she saw me, hatred erupted in her eyes. I have a system now.
I know all your secrets.
Why did I still lose? I frowned. What do you mean? You don't know? I'm bound to a system that helps me target your husband. My system is my cheat. It can tell me all the information in this world. But why? Why did I still fail? I finally understood. No wonder she knew so much about me and could steal my things so easily. Maybe it's because of the human heart. The heart is unpredictable, but also the most reliable. Some people will waver, but some people will never change. Chiyu lowered her head, her voice despondent. I can't commit suicide. You can give me some poison to kill me, just not a painful death. I turned and walked away, speaking softly. All right. In the 2nd year of Taigon, the emperor granted the death of the traitor's daughter, Chiyu. In the 3rd year of Taigon, the emperor's daughter gave birth to a girl, and Prime Minister Gu Mingxian cried tears of joy. I looked at Lin Yanxi's bloodshot peach blossom eyes and smiled. Why are you crying? Lin Yanxi gently stroked my face with his fingertips, speaking tenderly. I heard you cry out in pain. My heart aches so much. Wan, let's not have more children. One daughter on the throne is enough. All right. I hugged Lin Yanxi tightly, my heart full of warmth. In this life, having Lin Yanxi as my husband is my fortune. End of the novel.